Okay, so welcome to another deep dive.
Yeah,
We ask you to send us stuff, and you really came through this time.
you really did.
This is a big stack of personal stories people have shared online, and we want to kind of pull out the really interesting nuggets that'll make you think,
Yeah.
and kind of be a shortcut for you to like really get the core of what's going on with this whole topic. So,
Absolutely. And what really stood out to me as I was going through these was the common thread of just ordinary people living their lives, and then boom,
yeah,
they bump into something strange, the dark, the mysterious.
right, like the rug gets pulled out from under them in a
Yeah.
way that they weren't expecting.
Exactly.
So our mission is to explore these encounters and try to figure out, like, what are the patterns here? Are there any aha moments that we can highlight that tell us something about human nature or perception or, just the unexpected? We don't want to overload you. We want to keep this nice and digestible. So let's jump right in. This first batch of stories we're calling Encounters in Transit or Through Unexpected Solicitations. And this first one that really stood out is called The Walk Home.
Ooh, yeah. This one was intense. It really paints a picture of escalating unease. You've got this person walking to their girlfriend's place late on a Thursday night, kind of a quiet upscale neighborhood. And at first, it's just these subtle sounds behind them, like the rustle of a bush or a twig snapping.
Right, just little things.
Little things.
Could be anything.
Yeah, exactly. But each one kind of adds to this primal sense of being watched.
Yeah, and they even mention how the pace of the footsteps behind them started to match their own.
Yeah.
As they got more anxious, the footsteps got faster too. It's creepy.
It's like this invisible presence that can really get under your skin.
Totally. And then I think this is the really scary part, is they get to the girlfriend's property. And the girlfriend is like, hey, isn't that a guy like 10 feet behind you?
Oh my gosh.
And it is like a full-grown man crouched and walking behind them. And then he tries to grab them and they run away. I mean, come on.
It's like the sudden intrusion of something sinister into this totally normal, everyday moment.
Right, and they filed a police report. Like, this wasn't just a feeling. They were really shaken up by it.
Absolutely. It went from a routine walk to a moment of terror. And the police report shows it's not just personal fear anymore. It's a potential public safety issue.
Right, right. It makes you think about how easily things can change.
For sure.
Okay, this next one. The Stormy Night Visitor. This one plays on our sense of security in our own homes, especially when there's already this feeling of unease because of the weather.
Yeah, you've got this dangerous storm raging outside, and then suddenly, boom, this monstrous banging on the window.
Right.
It immediately makes you feel like someone's trying to get in.
And then they hear muffled pleas for help, and it's so confusing. Is it someone who genuinely needs help, or is it a trick?
Right? You just don't know.
And then the neighbor calls and says, hey, I saw someone go into your shed and come out with an axe.
Oh, wow. So those pleas for help suddenly take on a whole new meaning.
It's scary how quickly things could have gone wrong.
It really is. And they had blocked the front door, so they were trapped inside. It's a good thing the neighbor was paying attention.
Right. The neighbor was totally key in preventing something really bad from happening.
This shows how important it is to be aware of what's going on in your community and to look out for each other.
Absolutely. Okay, so this next one, the late night knock, this one takes place in a rural area around 9 p.m., which is already a little unusual for visitors.
Yeah, and what's interesting is how this guy tries to appear harmless. At first, he starts talking about American-made products and offers a Clorox sample, even mentions a vacuum cleaner.
Like he's just a friendly salesman.
Exactly. But then suddenly, 5 other men appear from this minivan.
What?
Yeah, it turns out it wasn't just a friendly visit. The whole thing feels really threatening.
Oh, wow, and they just peeled out of the driveway and that was it?
It leaves you wondering what their intentions really were.
Totally. It makes you question how we judge risk when we first meet someone, especially a stranger.
Exactly. Appearances can be deceiving.
Right. So what are some key takeaways from these first few stories?
Well, one thing that stands out is how vulnerable we can be even in everyday situations. Walking home, being in your house, even answering the door.
Yeah, it's like you can never let your guard down completely.
Right, and there's this recurring theme of intuition, that gut feeling that something's not right. We should pay attention to those feelings.
Totally. It's like our subconscious picking up on subtle cues, even if we don't consciously realize it.
Exactly, and those cues can be crucial in helping us avoid danger situations.
So staying aware, even in familiar surroundings, is super important.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on to part 2, we're going to look at some childhood and teenage encounters, which often have a different kind of impact because they happen during those formative years.
Right. These stories often tap into the unexplained and the disturbing in a way that can really stick with you.
Yeah, this first one, the basement voice, this one is all about the uncanny, that feeling of something being familiar, but also deeply unsettling.
Yeah, you've got this young child who hears their mother's voice calling from the basement.
But their mom is upstairs.
Exactly. It's like this fundamental challenge to their understanding of reality.
Right. And they go down to check multiple times, but the basement is always empty. It creates this lingering sense of unease.
It's not just a fear of the dark, it's something deeper. A sense that something is wrong with the environment itself.
Totally. And I think it's interesting to think about how children perceive the world. Their understanding of reality is still developing, and these kinds of experiences can really blur the lines.
Absolutely. And the fact that the mother also checked the basement but the child's fear didn't go away shows how subjective fear is and how much our early experiences shape our worldview.
That's so true. Okay, the next story, the taxidermied zoo and the hidden man. This one is about an elementary school field trip that takes a very dark turn.
Yeah, the setting itself is a bit creepy. You know, a rural zoo with a dimly lit hallway full of taxidermied animals. It's just a little off.
Right, and then this kid encounters a man hiding behind chairs.
At first they think he's joking, but then he tries to pull them toward the woods.
Oh God, that escalation from seemingly harmless to terrifying is just awful.
It is, and thankfully the teacher intervened. It highlights how important adult supervision is, especially in places where children are present.
Absolutely, and then at the end, the man is seen watching the buses leave. It's like this lingering sense of menace.
It really is. It's like a shadow hanging over what should have been a fun day.
Okay, this next one, the abandoned village exploration. This one is about a high school field trip, and it really captures that teenage fascination with the unknown.
Abandoned places have a certain allure, don't they? This sense of mystery and forgotten history.
Totally. And in this story, the students decide to explore a building by going through a hole in the ground.
So they're already venturing into the forbidden.
Right, and then they encounter these three silent figures in a dark room.
It's so creepy, the lack of explanation, the stillness, it leaves so much to the imagination.
And then as they're leaving, they see a face in an upper window. It's like they were being watched the whole time.
These kinds of experiences during adolescence, when you're already questioning everything, can really shape how you see the world.
Totally. It's like a transition from innocent curiosity
Yeah.
to a realization that there are real dangers out there and things we might not understand.
Exactly.
So thinking about all these stories from younger years, how do you think they might influence someone's perception of the world and their sense of safety as they get older?
I think these early encounters can definitely make people more aware of the potential for strange and dangerous things to happen, even in seemingly normal places.
It's like they instill a kind of hypervigilance.
Right, and it makes you think about how childhood experiences contribute to our adult sense of security or insecurity.
Absolutely. Okay, part 3 takes us into the realm of disturbing discoveries and unanswered questions, and this first one, the Craigslist ping pong table. This one is a reminder that even ordinary online transactions can take a dark turn.
Yeah, it's a chilling example of how the anonymity of the internet can mask real dangers.
So this person goes to buy a ping pong table off Craigslist and ends up finding horrific Polaroid pictures in the seller's basement.
Pictures of a girl tied to a chair, it's horrifying.
And then they realize they're locked in the basement with this guy.
That sudden shift from a normal transaction to a life-threatening situation is terrifying.
Right, and they find these labeled folders next to the photos, which suggests something even more sinister is going on.
It's like a glimpse into a dark and organized world of crime.
Thankfully, they managed to escape, but it turns out the seller was involved in child pornography on the deep web.
Which just shows how anonymity can be exploited for terrible things.
Absolutely. It's a reminder to be cautious, even in seemingly mundane interactions online, because you never know who you're really dealing with.
Exactly. Okay, the next story. The babysitting incident. This one explores those unsettling, unexplained events that can happen in a familiar setting, like our own homes.
Yeah, this babysitter is looking after a young boy named Cody, who talks to an imaginary friend, Agnes. Which isn't that unusual.
Great, then things start to get weird.
Exactly. First, a toy that requires physical manipulation starts activating on its own.
That's already a little creepy.
And then a door creaks open by itself while Cody is in another part of the house.
It's like something is deliberately trying to unsettle the babysitter.
It's definitely venturing into the realm of the paranormal, or at least the unexplainable.
Right, and it makes you question what we think we know about the world.
Totally. It's like those events chip away at our sense of normalcy and safety, even in our own home.
Exactly. It introduces the possibility that there are forces at play that we don't understand.
Okay, part 4 brings us to a terrifying encounter that happened in a remote location. The story is called Backcountry Skiing, and it highlights the dangers of trusting strangers in isolated environments.
Yeah, you've got this idyllic setting a backcountry ski trip with a friend.
And they encounter another skier who seems friendly at first.
Right, they chat about their plans, and there's this sense of camaraderie you often find among outdoor enthusiasts.
But then little things start to feel off.
Yeah, the backpack looks familiar, the wife who is supposed to be there is missing, and the other skier's demeanor starts to change.
It's like all these subtle warning signs start popping up.
Exactly, and then suddenly the other skier attacks them with a knife and a taser.
Oh my God, it's a brutal betrayal of trust.
It really is. And then they're robbed and left stranded in the cold waiting for rescue.
That must have been terrifying.
Yeah.
The feeling of vulnerability in that situation is unimaginable.
It shows how quickly things can go wrong, especially when you're far from help.
And it makes you question who you can trust.
Exactly. It's a reminder to be cautious even when you're in a seemingly safe environment, and to trust your instincts if something feels wrong.
So we've explored a lot of unsettling encounters today. From the mundane to the potentially paranormal to the very real dangers of human malice.
What connects them all is the unpredictable nature of the strange and mysterious. It can happen anywhere, anytime.
Right. These stories show us that the unexpected is always a possibility, and we need to be prepared to face it.
Absolutely. And they remind us to trust our gut feelings and to be mindful of our surroundings.
It's like a call to awareness and to always be ready to adapt to whatever life throws our way.
So after hearing all these stories, what do you think they tell us about the line between the ordinary and the extraordinary?
Yeah, it's a question worth pondering.
It is. How do we navigate that blurry line between the everyday and the unexpected? And how do we stay safe and informed in a world where anything is possible?
That's something for everyone to think about.
It is.
Thanks for listening.
And thanks for sharing your stories.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
See you then.
Bye.